All right, apparently the guy suspected of being involved in Young Dolph's murder straight drop isn't just a shooter, he's a marketing genius, because he promised over the whole weekend that he was going to turn himself in on Monday, but instead he dropped his new video on his Instagram page. So guy, suspect number one in the Dolph case, still on the run. He was supposed to turn himself in today, but dropped his new music video, straight drop. We'll see what happens next. According to a Gangster Diciple convicted in a RICO case not too long back, not only was Rick Ross extorted, he actually paid up. According to a guy alleged to be a high-ranking GD down south who was convicted as part of the big RICO case I mentioned in a story I did not too far back about Rick Ross and the GDs, where I posed the question, did Rick Ross give information about them extorting him? I still don't know if that's the case or not, but we do know that one of the high-ranking guys on the defense side took a plea agreement. He got a lot less time than everybody, and he said that they actually asked Rick Ross for $6 million, and he really did give them $3 million. So like I mentioned in the story a couple months back, a bunch of these guys from down south were all convicted in different RICOs, specifically the guys who had gone on, they were sending in videos to World Star saying, Rick Ross, you're banned from this state, you're banned from that state, for referencing Larry Hoover's name in the song, Blowing Money Fast. I think I'm Big Meech Larry Hoover. So those guys got long sentences, except for one guy only got 8 years, and you know, he might have been the inside source. And, you know, if anything, what's going on in the streets as far as people, especially with like Larry Hoover, but any of these infamous people that are incarcerated and are trying to get out, Big Meech, you know, people, what do they say, don't take the Lord's name in vain? Well, people definitely, I'm sure, take some of these guys' name in vain, meaning they're using their name to do things that they wouldn't want them to do. The idea that Larry Hoover from his little cell in Florence Supermax is directing traffic of what goes on with thousands of so-called GDs scattered around the country who might do anything and say it's for him. Like, I mean, Larry Hoover would have no desire for $3 million because there's nothing he can do with it. Like, a lawyer's not gonna get him out of prison. I'm sure he has a commissary. He's in Florence ADX, you can only get but so much. So, you know, so let me just backtrack and refresh your memory. Some months back, these different guys were sentenced to like 40 years, 32 years out of Georgia, Tennessee, and I think one of the Carolinas. And part of the RICO case was the extortion of Rick Ross. And there was something called the HATE, H-A-T-E committee, again, according to the feds, who sometimes will take pieces of information that in real life don't really add up to much. It's just a bunch of guys talking and make them sound more coherent than they were. But again, according to the feds, the GD's HATE committee extorted Rick Ross back in 2012, and there actually is an insider, a guy from Macon, Georgia, who the feds call the Macon, Georgia GD boss, Markel Killer Kel White. And he got on the stand and said, yeah, in fact, him and the other guys stepped to Ross in Miami and they asked for $6 million and they got paid $3 million. And while all these other guys got 32 years, 44 years, Killer Kel only got 8. And for someone like me that reads about so many of these cases, been mixed up in a few little things of my own back in the day, and know a lot of things from different sides, not just, so I know the media side, the criminal side, but I also talk to defense attorneys sometimes, and you know, I've interviewed federal agents, they tell you stuff off the record. You know, so this guy, I'm sure the defense attorneys are the other GD leaders, and the reason I say GD leaders in quotations, I mean, that the way when it's worded like that and it's written up in a RICO, which they always preface with, the Gangster Disciples were formed in the 1960s and run by Larry Hoover and this and that, it implies that what some 29-year-old in Macon, Georgia is doing right now is being, you know, I don't know, ordered or orchestrated by someone in Chicago or some people in prison, which, I mean, has a 0% chance of being true. So you have these guys who were convicted of committing some crimes in the South, call themselves GDs, got themselves on World Star Hip Hop by telling Rick Ross where he could and couldn't go, and then they all get indicted, and one of them was cunning enough, let's just say, and you know, maybe he made, it's called get down first. Whoever can make up a good story and get down with the law enforcement first, well, their story is the one that has to be debunked. So who knows? So this guy, Markel Killer Kel White, out of Macon, Georgia, was 48 years old, and he was indicted with Donnie Smurf Glass and dozens of other guys who were supposedly GDs back in 2016. And the hate committee, according to, I guess, White and maybe some other informants' testimony, was formed in Decatur, Georgia, to handle high priority jobs for the GDs. Mixed in with this, and I'll maybe do another story about this, there was a DeKalb County or Fulton County, one of those county sheriffs, a young guy who got out of the military, and he really was on the phone, I think as part of this hate committee case, saying that he was a hitman for the GDs, and he got a boatload of time. So I need to do a separate story on him because it's pretty interesting. So in 2010, Rick Ross released the song Blowing Money Fast, and on the chorus he says, "I think I'm Big Meech and Larry Hoover." Many people were bothered by the name check in the song and the fact that Rick Ross had not sought an okay from the organization to use it. DEA informants claimed that word had been sent to the street that the situation would have to be dealt with. And on the evening of November 17th, 2012, Smurf Glass, Shantae Craig, Alonzo Walton, and Kevin K.K. Clayton approached the hefty rap tycoon at the Loews Hotel in Miami Beach, according to DEA records. So this Markel White said that this story was true on the stand as well, but I guess he wasn't there. So again, he could be filling in the blanks in a way that's conducive to him getting a light sentence, let's just say. And they stepped to Ross and they went up to a hotel room, demanded a tribute in cash if Ross was going to continue to brag about connections to the GD Nation in future songs, and reportedly threatened physical harm if he didn't comply. Like I said, just recently, Smurf Glass was convicted of murder and racketeering and sentenced to life in prison. Shantae Craig, Walton, were sentenced to 40 years and 32 years himself. Killer Kel, the guy that verified the story on the stand, he only got 8, even though he started off facing all the same charges, and he was the oldest guy out of the bunch. Funny who they pick, who the informants are gonna be. And here in LA recently, there was a concert of Drake and Kanye about freeing Larry Hoover again, and Kanye got himself in a news cycle and got himself some marketing when he wore the MAGA hat, and he mentioned Larry Hoover in the same kind of strange conversation with Donald Trump, where he was just kind of, to me, he was just using any hot button word or idea he could to get himself more publicity. I don't think he did Larry Hoover any favors. If Larry Hoover gets out, it'll probably be despite celebrities, not because of them. And I think a lot about something, because I do this for a living, is how branding has moved over into the world of crime, and how celebrities, movies, a lot of people like the aura of danger that comes with mentioning criminals' names or talking about street stuff, but of course they don't want to be there when the court cases start going off or the guns start going off. And same thing with Big Meech. You know, it seems like, I'll say this for him, it's like he fell on his sword so his son could have an acting career, because his son seems to be being propelled probably into a nice career because of the BMF Star show, but I can't see Meech getting out early at this point, because he would be exactly what a federal prosecutor would point to as a bad example, you know, to let him out early, as there's a show on TV glorifying him, etc. and so forth. So So back in the day, the big gangsters were smart to want to have people keep their names out of their mouth, but I mean, now it's just become a part of pop culture like so many other things. Like, who would have thought, you know, transvestites and dangerous gangsters locked up at maximum security prisons, these would be like part of the normal celebrity culture of the year 2022. It's pretty strange. So yeah, Rick Ross supposedly paid $3 million for the use of Larry Hoover's name. I wonder, did any of that actually benefit Larry Hoover? Did he get a commissary slip out of it? I mean, he certainly didn't get out of jail. Who knows if it even really happened? One thing to know about those big elaborate court cases, it's just who tells the best story. I mean, like, not that the crimes didn't happen, there's dead bodies and somebody killed them, but when you got all these people wrapped up in them, you know, the prosecution's trying to use the evidence to tell one story, the defense to tell another story, and then each defendant has his own motives. And in the case of this Markel, Killer Kel White, who said Rick Ross in fact coughed up $3 million, well, he only got 8 years, and his compatriots got a lot longer than that. So let's see, 2012, maybe Killer Kel has gotten out in time to go spend his share of the $3 million, or not. So brand names in crime and using gangsters to sell stuff or to market yourself, that's the marketing wave, it seems like, in urban culture right now. But guys are playing with fire like Rick Ross found out back then. So free Larry Hoover, Al Prophet, America.